I told my husband. I told you so. And laughed at me when we got the paternity test results. I, 27 female, have been married to my husband, 28 male, for 2 years and gave birth to our daughter 5 weeks ago. I'll try to keep this short, so I don't waste your time with any irrelevant details. What happened was that our daughter came out with blonde hair and pale blue eyes, while my husband and I had brown hair and brown eyes. My husband freaked out at this and refused to listen to my explanation that, sometimes, babies are born with lighter hair and eyes that get darker over time. He demanded a paternity test and threatened to divorce me if I didn't comply, so I did. After my daughter and I got home from the hospital, my husband went to stay at his parents' house for the first 3 weeks to get some space from me, while I recovered, and he told them what was happening. My mother-in-law called and informed me that if the paternity test revealed that the child wasn't his, she would do anything within her power to make sure that I was taken to the cleaners during the divorce. I had my sister to lean on and help me take care of the baby during this. We got the results back yesterday, and my husband came home to view them with me. I was on the couch in the living room, so he sat next to me, and we started to read the results. They showed that he was the father, and my husband had this shocked, kind of mortified look on his face with his eyes wide as he stared at it. I couldn't help but say, "I told you so," and started laughing at the way he looked. My husband snapped out of his shock and got mad at me for laughing at him. We argued for a bit, which was mainly him yelling at me before my sister came downstairs and my husband shut up. After that, my husband went back to his parents' house to clear his head, and 2-3 hours later, my mother-in-law called to scold me for laughing in my husband's face, because apparently it was kicking him while he was down. She's also left a couple of nasty texts essentially saying the same thing this morning. I don't think I'm an AH, but I'd like an outsider's perspective on this. Here is the update. I'll start this post off by saying thank you for all the advice and support I was given. You all gave me a firm kick in the ass to divorce my ex. Also sorry for leaving you in the lurch for the past 2 months. Alright, here's the update. After making my post, I decided to search for divorce lawyers in my area with my sister. It took a while, but I managed to find and meet with one who was willing to do virtual consultations. During this, my ex was not contacting me at all, but I did reach out to see if he was okay. Eventually, once he actually got served, my ex came back to our house and tried pleading with me not to go through with the divorce. He said he loved me more than anyone and that we could go to couples therapy. During this, my ex slipped up and admitted to cheating on me when he first left me. He said that he got caught up with his coworker when trying to explain his weeks-long absence. At first, I didn't realize who he was talking about because he referred to her by a nickname, think Viv over Vivian, but my brain kicked back into gear and asked if that getting caught up with her was code for that he screwed her. My ex stumbled over his words and tried to dodge the question, but he seemed to realize that I wasn't going to let up on this pretty quickly. He admitted to going to her for emotional support before our baby was born since he was nervous about being a dad, and eventually freaking her during the time he left, so you guys were right about him cheating. I had heard enough at that point and told my ex point blank we were going to divorce, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and that I wanted 50-50 custody. We'd only speak about the divorce, custody arrangements, and our daughter herself after this. My ex just nodded to what I was saying and asked if he could see our daughter. I was a bit hesitant, but said yes, and called my sister to have her bring our daughter down to the living room. My ex held our daughter and talked briefly to the baby before leaving. My sister asked me if I was all right after he was gone, and I told her I was okay. My mother-in-law did try to harass me over the phone about me divorcing my ex, but by then, I had already blocked her, so she went to my sister instead. I guess my mother-in-law was never told that I own the house my ex and I previously shared since she texted my sister, saying that I was going to be on the streets. Well, my mother-in-law most certainly knows that now, since my ex is now living with her and moved out. My ex has seen our daughter a few times. Those visits were awkward, to say the least, but I managed. Hopefully, I won't have to give you guys any more updates about this.
I did not punish my son for hitting girls who were attacking him. My son is 14 years old and in the 8th grade. He's a great kid and super well behaved. He gets good grades, does his chores, and is involved in several extracurricular activities in his school. Well, yesterday my wife and I got a call from his school that he was suspended for getting into a fight and that one of us needed to come to get him. So, I went to grab him as I was more easily able to leave work for the day, and when I got there the principal showed me the footage of what had happened. So, 3 girls had been throwing food at one of the boys at the table my son and his friends were sitting in at lunch. My son, after a few minutes of this happening, turned around and started to yell at the girls to get them to stop. The girls kept doing it until my son threw an empty milk carton at them and got some milk to splash on them. This made the girls come up to the table and get into a screaming match with my son. Until one of the girls started slapping my son, he then pushed her somewhat hard, and she fell backwards. This made the other girls start hitting him, and after a couple of moments, my son started punching the girls. It took about 15 seconds of commotion before the fight was broken up by the vice principal and they were separated. I think the vice principal should have noticed the food throwing and screaming before it even got to that point, but it's neither here nor there. My son had several large scratches on his face, and I was informed he had busted one of the girls' lips. I was told my son would be suspended for the next school week, so I took him to McDonald's and then home. I told him he wasn't in trouble as he was not the one to start the altercation, but he really needs to be mindful of stuff like this as it can show up on his school record. He understood and said he was just so angry as these girls had been picking on the boy sitting with them for all of middle school and he'd had enough. When my wife got home, I explained to her the situation and she was livid that my son was in his room playing video games and not being punished. I told her I was not going to punish my son for sticking up for a child being bullied and for defending himself when attacked. Her response was that he shouldn't lay his hands on girls no matter what and he should have just run away. She went into his room and yelled at him and went to take his PlayStation away when I stepped in to stop her. I told her she needed to calm down and that we needed to talk this through before she made unilateral punishment decisions. She is insistent that he be punished for the whole week he is suspended, and I disagree and think the suspension is punishment enough as when he gets back to school, he is going to have a massive amount of schoolwork to catch up on. He has never gotten so much as a detention in his life and is a good kid. I'm not going to punish him for an incident that was a one-off that he didn't even initiate. She's mad at me for letting him off the hook on this one and said I'm raising him to be a woman beater, which is just flat out ridiculous. I asked her if she'd still want to punish him if 3 boys were ganging up on him, and she said yes, but not as harshly as he should be for fighting back with the girls. I refused to let him be punished and have even stated to her that this is why our son trusts me more and comes to me with his problems. Because even though he's well behaved, she wants to jump down his throat for every little mishap he makes.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.